Awesome.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Abundant Wellness Podcast. Today, we have Sharon Cryan with FoodNerd Inc. today with us, and we're going to be talking all about children's nutrition, her company, how they're solving problems that every parent is experiencing when it comes to feeding your child really good, healthy food, and breaking down some of those nuanced stressors that I think parents think about in terms of is processed food really bad for us? And how is that impacting their little bodies and their brains and their nervous system? So, Sharon, welcome. I'd love for you to introduce yourself and share a little bit about kind of how this journey evolved for you and how you launched your company.
Awesome. Well, thanks for having me. My name is Sharon Cryan. I am the founder and CEO of FoodNerd Inc., which is a food technology company and baby and toddler company. But before that, my prior life, I'm an attorney, turned food startup entrepreneur, was never the intention, was never the goal. But that's how life happens. You find something that you're so passionate about, and then it just becomes your whole world. And for me, my journey really started when I was actually developing in my mom's belly. So when she was actually diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when she was pregnant with me. And I'm the youngest of six. She was a single disabled mom, just an absolute superhuman, like every mom is. And she was my world. And we grew up on tremendous amounts of ultra processed foods.
Mm.
And it really shaped my life, the way I think of the world, the way I think of health. And, kind of unintentionally became a food nerd. And now my goal in life is to end childhood malnutrition. It's one of those things that it's just not talked about enough, but it
Absolutely.
is surprisingly getting worse. And so now that I've become a mom 4 years ago, my son is my whole world. And the thought of a child being malnourished and not getting what they need is a feeling that drives me every day. And that is why I started Food Nerd, and that is why I'm here.
I love that. And it's beautiful that you're also, it's not just like, oh, let's, provide these cute little packaged foods for kids, right? Which anybody can really do. But it's looking at that bigger mission. And I want to land on something that you said, because you said that malnutrition in children is actually getting worse, not better.
Mhm.
I would agree with that, but I want to hear what you're observing, because I think that our misconception is that why, like, we have access to more food than we ever have. We have access to more government services that fill in those gaps. So what are you seeing as the contributor to that?
Yeah, so a lot of things has happened over the last 50 years. I don't know if you remember in the 90s and the early 2000s when there was a lot of videos and commercials around starving children in Africa, and you
Yep.
would see, the popped belly, and that's what we thought of as starvation, right? It was stunting and wasting, and that's what happens when a child just doesn't have calories, it doesn't have
Right.
access to food. The body starts to shut down in that way, right? It's fighting its hardest. Those numbers have come down slightly, not completely by any means or by majority, but they have come down. But what unfortunately has been happening around the world is a new type of malnutrition has almost skyrocketed out of nowhere. And this type of, it's called silent malnutrition, but it's essentially it's overfed and malnourished. So this
Mm-hmm.
is what we're seeing now across the world, mainly here in the U.S. is, I believe, like the birthplace of where this really started. And
Right.
to your point, there's food everywhere, right? It's something that's really hard to conceptualize for a parent when the pantry may be full. Kids are going to school, like they have access to food, but they don't have access to nutrition, and that's the
Yeah.
difference. Food isn't nutrition. We've really broken the food system so that way nowadays, even though the plate may be full, we lost our way. We forgot why we're eating and what's important, and that's nutrient density. And so
Right.
now we have children who are overweight and obese, but now they actually are malnourished. And so they may not be stunting and wasting away due to lack of calories, but the scientific parallels that are happening is really heartbreaking. We have
Mm-hmm.
hundreds of millions of children now malnourished in this form. And,
Yeah.
it's heartbreaking as a parent. There's to me, I think as a parent, the most gut wrenching feeling is the thought of a child being starved. Like that
Right.
is like that. We should not have that in
Right.
2026. Like we grow enough
Right.
food on this planet. We have the distribution. There should be no starving child. But
Right.
yet there still is. And now we've created this whole other problem. And something radical really needs to happen in order to shift this system because it's broken.
Right.
And so that's what's happening around us. And I feel like no one's really talking about it.
I fully agree with you. It's something, I work the functional medicine side of this, this angle. You're on the kind of the other side in the distribution and producing side of things. But what I see mirrors exactly what you say, where we have kids that are coming in with rates of chronic illness that exceed their parents, that they're experiencing chronic illness at a much younger age. And so we're looking at like, what are the factors in this? And it's not, a lot of times we think, oh, it must be this thing that's outside of them, like this big disease process, right? Or like maybe they got really sick when they were little, or that's not the case. Like that is not the case for the vast majority of these children. It is the things that we are exposed to on a daily basis, right? And if you think about like, and I'm not even talking about like air and water, I'm just talking about food at this point, because that's that slow drip, right? Of food sending cellular information to the body. And my first exposure to understanding that, now keep in mind, I'm a nurse. I went to nursing school. We got, drips of nutrition throughout all of our courses, but it was more like in line with the food pyramid. It was not really understanding on a micro level what's happening in the cells when you eat certain types of food. The book that changed that for me was called Deep Nutrition, which I don't know if you've ever read it, but it's
I haven't.
fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay, if you have not, and I'm guessing by the name of your company, FoodNerd, I think you would love it. Completely changed how I thought about food, 100%, because I grew up similar to you, like everything was processed. Like everything that I ate was processed. And by looking at me, you would not have thought I was malnourished because, again, I was a little bit overweight. But on a nutrient level, like, right, when we look at blood work, we're like, why is this person anemic? Why don't they have any B vitamins? Why is their zinc really low? Why are they not getting magnesium, right? So can we talk a little bit about, I know that was like a lot of words for me to get to the question, but I just wanted to bring in the kind of the other side of what we see with that. When we talk about how food is processed, because again, I think most of us were trained to look at the back of that nutrition label. We see the calories, we see like how much fiber, how much protein, how much fat, whatever. But we're not looking at actually what's in it. Can the body utilize this cellular information? Because food is like communication to the body, right?
100%.
So how the food is, and this is a loaded question, so I'm super curious what you're going to say. How the food processed change how we absorb it, how like our body takes it in? Does that make sense?
Oh, 100%. Yeah, no, it's to me, I think it's one of the biggest questions that we should have been asking when we develop the manufacturing processes that now run how food is made in the US.
Right.
And globally, but that was not really on the table. And so the way that I say it's really two things. It's the ingredients, and then it's what you do to the ingredients, as simple as that is. So, and it's really interesting the way that marketing and a lot of these food companies have distorted things that we truly know to our gut to be true.
Right.
But if you take an oat, for example, you may process it one way, and I may take the same raw ingredient and I will process it a different way. But the bioavailability and the different nutritional loads could be completely different. But on the pack, it just says oats. And from a consumer standpoint, and this is where, as an attorney in my former life, this is where I was like, the transparency and the consent is missing, because I have such limited information to now make a purchasing decision.
Right.
Because the manufacturing and curtains are completely closed. We have no right to call a manufacturer and say, hey, what did you do to that oat? Or how did you make
Right.
that oil? How? I want to know every single step that happened, what chemical agents were used, what levels of, how many times was it heated at what degree? Like, we don't have a right to know that. That's considered the food manufacturer's privacy, right?
Proprietary
Exactly.
information. Yeah.
And so, I just remember sitting in law school feeling very, very uncomfortable with the fact that we are so far removed from what's actually happening as consumers. Yet
Yeah.
this is what we're putting in our bodies every day. This
Right.
isn't, the clothing that we're wearing, which is still another issue, right? But this is the actual, like to your point, this is the data that our cells are now going to receive and respond every day epigenetically to. So my health, most of it, I think the numbers fluctuate a little bit, but about 80% comes from your diet. A
Right.
massive decision factor for your daily health is diet. And
Exactly.
we have no right to understand what's happening behind the food manufacturing curtains. And there's no way for us to actually know. We're completely blinded. And so that was my mission, was to actually go in and say, okay, how is food made? What happens to the nutrients? Are there any new harmful compounds that are created because of it?
Right.
And I want to know what's actually left in the finished package. And so that sent me
Mm-hmm.
on this journey of realizing that the entire food system from the FDA structure, 100 to 50 years ago, was all based on, hey, we don't want people to get sick from a few harmful bacteria, a
Right.
few harmful pathogens, which is great. And we need to make sure that the food is safe.
Right.
But what happened was nutrition was lost in the conversation. So
Right.
lots of high heat, lots of high pressure, pH,
Mm-hmm.
chemical manipulation that's happening. And
Stripping of all of the nutrients,
stripping.
essentially.
Exactly. And that's
Yeah.
just on the processing side. That's not even
Mm-hmm.
touching what's happening in the growing process and all of the chemicals
Right.
and the agents that are used there.
It makes me
That's
want to cry thinking about it. I'm like, ugh, it's so
it's
bad.
I like to say, like, we've gotten almost everything wrong in the food industry that we could have,
Yeah.
which is very doom and gloom, and I understand that. But I think
It's
there's
true though.
it's true. And it's almost like you can't fix something unless you fully acknowledge what's truly wrong and all the
Right.
broken points. So it's like, okay, we got our agriculture wrong, and there's some big movements happening around regenerative organic and styles of approaching getting away from industrial agriculture, which is great. Now we're starting to know manufacturing flaws. And the biggest thing, and this is a long-winded answer, but the
No,
biggest
this is
thing to
great.
understand is that if it is in a package and it's shelf stable, it was processed. The degree of
Mm-hmm.
processing is going to vary based on a lot of different factors. But the biggest thing that I say is that if you can't see individual ingredients, or you would not be able to make it at home identically to the way that you see it, it's been so processed and adulterated, just don't touch it. Because
Yeah.
nature likes to be in its whole form, right?
Mm-hmm.
We pick an apple, we eat it. Our body knows exactly what to do to it and how to break down, how to interact with it. All those beautiful cofactors are there: minerals, vitamins, proteins, fats, fibers, phytonutrients, enzymes. Our body knows exactly how to digest that. Now,
Right.
when you take that apple and you do all sorts of things to it, it now confuses the body. It's sending different data. And so processing does few things. It destroys nutrients. It also creates new harmful carcinogenic compounds called acrylamides, carcinogens, or advanced glycation end products, also known as AGEs. And then it's also denaturing in that process the bioavailability of the amino acids and the fatty acids. So that way, even though something may say 10 grams of protein, I promise you're not getting 10 grams of protein.
No.
You're getting a very small fraction that is still bioavailable to your body. And so processing is it's just absolutely destroying nature. And now I believe we're at this point where now the science is caught up, where now we can test and we can measure and we can say, okay, these ingredients should not be subjected to X, Y, and Z processing because
Right.
it's killing the vitamin C. It's destroying the protein bioavailability. And so that's what's the mission at Food Nerd was, let's develop a brand new way of processing food. Because now you can't just tell somebody only eat whole foods every day, all day, because we live in this busy world. These
Mm-hmm.
foods have crept into our world because of convenience, and that's why
Right.
they have made our lives easier. And so we have to meet people where they're at. We have to give them
Exactly.
shelf-stable, convenient products without all the processing. And so I hope that answers your question. But processing
It
destroys all the good
does. No, and that's the takeaway that I think we need to hear, because we look at it, we've been trained to look at the nutrition label like you said, it's got 10 grams of protein, 4 grams of fiber, and we think that that's actually what we're getting. But if the body can't break it down, or how I visualize it, and maybe this is not, if the chemistry people out there are listening, I apologize, because this probably is not actually visually what happens, but in my brain, this is how I visualize what happens. You have this food that goes through, it comes in its natural, like you said, it's perfect form that the body knows exactly what to do with. And then you alter it with heat or pressure or chemicals. And all of a sudden, that cellular information that knows how to communicate with your cells, it speaks the same language, right?
Mhm.
It's like we're both speaking English right now. We're both speaking the same language. Now is no longer speaking that language. And the body's like, we don't know what to do with this. And so we're going to start maybe releasing some inflammation, right? Or some antibodies to attack this thing because it looks foreign to the body, which is what we know is contributing to chronic illness, inflammation in children. I mean, the GI maps that I look at in kids, some of them, most of them are as bad, if not worse, than most of the adults that I work with.
Yeah.
And this is a huge part of it. But like you said, it's not always easy. I mean, for us, it was a huge and slow overhaul to get back to as like close to the ground eating. That's the only way I know how to say it,
Yeah.
as we can. And even then, it's like, this isn't perfect. We have busy weeks. We go camping and we want something convenient to go with us, right? And so trying to find companies and brands that are willing to do the work and the transparency, because the other thing I want to speak to with this, kind of circling back, is really what opened my eyes to just how deeply dysfunctional the processing is, or I don't really have a better word for that right now, was when my oldest was diagnosed with a bunch of food allergies. She got, 25 different food allergies, and her biggest one was corn. And I'm thinking, easy, like we'll just avoid eating corn, right? Well, turns out maltodextrin is in everything,
Mhm.
and they are not required to label it. And so I would call supplement companies, I would email them, and I would say, hey, was this modified food starch, which could literally be anything,
Anything. Mhm.
from corn? And they're like, oh, we can't tell you that because the person we purchased it from didn't tell us that. And I'm like, well, like what is this? Like, shouldn't we know? Because we're not the only ones allergic to corn. What if somebody is highly sensitive to dairy, right? Or
Yeah.
other things that maybe they're anaphylactic to. So that's really what opened my eyes to just how much more thorough I had to be in my food choosing process, and especially the processed, the processed foods that are in a box, like you said. So we know that changing the processing changes how the food communicates to the cells, and that can set off this cascade of inflammation, chronic illness, all of that stuff. How have you, because you have all of that information, that obviously started this process of building products that parents can use, right? And kind of grab and go. So tell us a little bit about what products you have available and what need those are meeting, because I know we were chatting before we hopped on. My kids are older, but I'm still going to grab some of these because they look great and I want some easy snacks. So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about what you have available, and we'll just keep dialoguing from there.
Awesome. And so, and something that you mentioned, I think, is like, was that same moment that I had when I was sitting in law school. And it was one, reading case law, two, about, okay, this ingredient was proven to be harmful to the human body, but somehow it got back into the system, or they changed
Yeah.
a molecular structure slightly and renamed it and put it back as another additive. So I was seeing it on this end, feeling like you felt, where you're like, when you call these companies and you say, well, we're talking about food that I'm putting into my child's body. Was this not designed for my health and my family's health and our best
Right.
interests? And that's where, for me, I realized our food system wasn't built for human health. It wasn't built for transparency. And that's why we have 10 very large food companies globally that really control most of the food supply.
Right.
Now, this was the other piece was the amount of capital and infrastructure that has gone into these very large facilities that produce these foods is enormous, right? And so now there's lots of financial interest invested in the way that we manufacture food. And when you invest that much, of course, they don't want transparency of what's happening because one mom, just one mom, it takes one mom to walk through that facility or just ask one question like you did. Well, why is this here? And how come you won't tell me what's here? For all of it to really come crumbling down because it
Right.
wasn't built on the right morals. It wasn't built on what's best for humans and our health and our
Right.
babies. And so I was not a mom at the time I started Food Nerd, but watching all of my siblings have health issues, watching my mom have health issues, my nieces and nephews, like I was like, why isn't anybody really fighting for transparency? Like this should be a fundamental right that we all have in the food industry. And
Absolutely.
so one of those moments that I just kind of sat with was, okay, well then let me call some food manufacturers and let me see if I have this idea of, hey, I found some of the most incredible research around some of the most nutrient dense foods that I think we all should have access to, but we don't. And let me just call manufacturers and let me see if they will produce this for me.
Yeah.
And all of them said, no, we don't have the technology. We're not able to do that. You have to do this. You have to high heat. You have to do all these things. And I was just kept asking why. And I was getting really frustrated because I was an attorney. I didn't want to be a food manufacturer. I just wanted to make sure products were made good.
Yeah. Right.
And it really like clicked for me that over 80% of all brands that you see out there, it looks like there's hundreds of thousands of different brands, but 80% of them are all made on the same exact manufacturing line. They're all
Mm-hmm.
co-manufactured. So when you see this like organic disruptive brand that's trying to do something really different, most of the time, unfortunately, they may be just ingredient swapping, but
Yeah.
they're not fundamentally changing what's actually happening. And so that
To the
even
food itself.
to the
Right.
food, exactly. So for me, like the journey, I almost like was forced to into it because now I knew how high heat and all this processing can destroy the good stuff. And then I realized, well, no one wants to test and be transparent. And so we had to go create Food Nerd and we had to create it this way. And it took 7 years to get
Oh
to
my
this point.
goodness.
Um,
Amazing.
and that-
Congratulations for making it through that. That's a lot.
it was a lot. And, we just launched literally in February. So even though we were a 7-year-old company, we are completely brand new. And the Food Nerd Mega Puff, which is the first product line that we launched, and I'm really excited to say we have some really awesome products that are teed up for the future. Because once we figured out a new way to process food, and then we tested the raw ingredients. So, hey, in this beet, let's test all the nutrients in this beet. And then we test the finished product that has the sprouts and the beets and everything in it. We wanted to see what nutrients were retained. And
I
we
love
kept
that.
perfecting the process until we knew exactly that we can maintain up to almost 98%, and in some cases over
Wow.
100% of all of nature. Because if we can't do that,
That's
we're not
amazing.
we're not able to actually help people. So the first product is literally we take 100% of a child's daily recommended amount of fruits and vegetables from ages 1 to about 3 to 4 years old, and we turn them into bite-sized, delicious, crunchy snacks that to them taste like the food that they know and love, the snacks that they know
Hmm.
and love. But it's nutritionally identical to the raw ingredients that you see on the nutrition label.
Wow.
Um, and so much love and care and science has gone into ensuring that. And I wish, we could put a pamphlet on the back of the pack to just really tell parents like what is actually in here. And that's what we're trying to build out
Yeah.
our transparency, traceability and everything on the website. So parents who do want to go deeper and do want to understand how it was processed, where we
Right.
sourced it, what nutrient testing we did, they can go and see it. Because at Food Nerd, we're a bunch of moms, we're a bunch of parents. And if we wouldn't give this to our little ones, we wouldn't sell it. And so that's really where, Food Nerd was really born out of a deep desire for transparency. And we're hoping that not only parents understand that, but it just makes life easier for them. And maybe you don't have to
Absolutely.
understand every aspect of the process, but the goal is at this point just getting nutrition into their bellies because nature is so powerful. It will do
Right.
what it needs to do. It will go in and it will do exactly what it needs to do. Those raw plant fibers, those healthy
Right.
and bioavailable fats and proteins, and those phytonutrients that we test for, I mean, that's food as medicine. That's why we eat plants because of these
Right.
phytonutrients. They just do amazing things epigenetically for our bodies. And so we just want to package it, do the science, and make it easy.
I
That's
love
food.
that. I love that. And I think you encircled that really well, or encaptioned it really well, because I think our one of the things that I see in my practice is I get a lot of parents that come to me that are like, what supplement should I give for X behavior or X symptom? And my first immediate thought is like, yeah, we can talk about that. First of all, I have like 1,500 other questions, but the first one is always going to be, what are they eating? Because supplements should supplement. They should fill in the gap where maybe we have genetic issues where we don't absorb things appropriately, or we don't utilize B vitamins as well. And of course, then you're going to need some sort of supplementation. But we can't, not leveraging the dietary aspect is mismanagement, in my opinion. And so now, how we get parents there is different for every case, because like you said, we have to meet people where they are. And I'm not going to tell somebody, you have to overhaul your pantry and spend $2,000 and get rid of all the food you just bought last week. Like, that's not doable for most people.
Yeah.
Nor is it like emotionally something most people are
Yeah.
ready to do, right? And so I think, when I was looking over your products, I got really excited about them because they are, first of all, the packaging is beautiful, so nice job. But what I was immediately, when I kind of flipped it over, I immediately was just looking at it immediately talks about the process. So what the processing looks like, how we preserve nutrients, what's in it. Very easy to read. So you're not like, phosphate what? And you know what I mean? Like, what
Right.
does that mean? Very, very user friendly and non intimidating. So I just wanted to encourage you with that. Really, really nice job.
Thank
Not
you.
that you were asking for my opinion
No,
on.
ingredients that you know and that you would know you would
Yes.
know how to interact with, and that's all of
It
those are
makes it
so
less intimidating.
less intimidating. And that's like where the main goal was to bring transparency forward to tell parents exactly how much. I actually have it back here. So like when we say, I was like, what's the best way? We started with this bar chart, which says, okay,
Yeah.
because I didn't, sometimes words just in general could be overwhelming. So I was like, how do we visualize that? Okay, it's half of an organic apple. It's 6,000 sprouts. Um, it's a quarter of a huge beet, a date, and some cinnamon. Like that's it. This is actually the
Yeah.
one my son's really obsessed with right now is the red one. But
Yeah.
what we were trying to do is, I think a lot of people maybe don't really know what sprouts are or don't understand,
Like how
or they think
beneficial they are for
how
you. Yeah.
beneficial. Like they are just a powerhouse of nutrition, and we replace refined flours, refined oils, refined sugars, and all those additives with fresh living sprouts. And then
Awesome.
we grow them ourselves. So we are a grow manufacturing facility and a cold processing facility. And what
Awesome.
that means is we get to control. We grow to when those sprouts are at their absolute nutrient peak, and then we lock it in deep frozen place, right? So we lock those nutrients in place. And so we wanted to
That's so
prove
cool.
that like you can eat something shelf stable, but when you eat it, you're eating a 3-day old broccoli sprout that has been
Wow.
suspended in space. So like there is nothing that is more nutrient dense than something like a fresh living broccoli sprout. And we wanted to make sure that if you were to open this bag and somehow there's a whole broccoli seed that was still left, you'd be able to grow it in the ground and it would grow fully. Like we wanted to
Wow.
maintain the integrity of the life that's in the food because that's one of the biggest things ultra processing has destroyed and separated us from nature. And so that's like the level of intention and science that went into that. So when you see all those sprouts on the pack, know that they are being grown right here in our facility, organic,
Awesome.
amazing seeds that we're just bringing to life. And so yeah, it's definitely, we tried our hardest to try to make it, understandable but fun because
Yeah.
mom and dad are buying it. So we're trying to
Yeah.
speak to mom and dad, but it's really for the littles. The little
Right.
ones are oftentimes holding the bag. So we wanted it
Yeah.
to be fun for them. We wanted to bring,
Yeah.
make food
I think you did
vegetables fun.
great.
Thank you. Yeah,
I
it's a learning
I'm
process.
super impressed. I'm very impressed by it. And so since you've just launched it, tell us about like what are the ordering options? Is
Mhm.
it like can you buy tell us a little bit about because I know that that's always the first question when you pop on a website is like, okay,
Yeah.
this is awesome. I know that I need it. And then how can people get it?
Yeah, so right now we have kind of one-time purchase, so you can just buy them. Right now we have them in bundles. And so it's really designed to, like, the goal is to have at least one pack or half a pack a day to fill in nutritional gaps because 95% of kids do not eat their daily recommended amount of fresh fruits and vegetables. So these were designed and formulated to be that 100%. So my son has had a pack every day since he was 6 months old, or like 6 to 9 months old is when I was kind of starting him on these, but he's now 4. And so he eats a bag a day. So regardless of how perfect our meals were, I know he got his fruits and veggies in. So they're in
Mm-hmm.
25 pack bundles. And that was designed to just like make sure it's always in the pantry. There's one in the diaper bag, there's one in the car. So you can buy that 25 kit one time, or you can subscribe and get them at a cheaper price per bag. And then you can also you have flexibility of like when you want that delivered, right? So hey, I want these 25 bags, every 30 days or every 35 or 40 days. So that's how they're available online right now.
Awesome.
The other option is at retail stores. So if you just want to pick up a bag or two or go try the different flavors, we launch nationwide in Sprouts Markets. So if there's a
Awesome.
Sprouts near you, you can go check them out. We're also in a bunch of other boutique retailers, and we'll be launching nationwide in another large retailer in March 2027 here, which is very exciting. So our
Awesome.
goal is to, if you can and you have a store near you that sells them, you can look on the website too for a store locator. Go try a bag, try it with your little ones, and make sure you eat it as the parent. Like, do a side by side. Take, whatever product, your snack that your little toddler's eating, and taste them side by side. And you will taste the difference. You will be like, wow, this tastes like real whole foods. And then if you love it and it makes your life easier, and then you can go on our website and try it there.
I love that. And I think that's awesome. And I am so excited that you guys are getting this into more stores. I will definitely be keeping my eye out in my local grocery as well for that. And I think the last thing you shared so much good information here, but the last thing I just wanted to say here, because this was a thing that kind of tripped me up in my, not necessarily in my knowing what to give my kids, right? Like how much food to feed them, what's the right nutrient density, and almost like underestimating how much I was giving them. And I'll explain what this means. So they need a little, but the little that they need is actually a lot. And
Yeah.
I think that that's where sometimes we can be like, oh, it doesn't matter if all they eat is chicken nuggets and macaroni and cheese and French fries and we've had seasons of that, so I am certainly not judging any
Yeah.
parent with any strategies here. But when you look at the bag, any nutrient bag, and you're like, oh, it's only 5 milligrams of folate, or it's whatever in there, and it looks so small, you have to remember how big it is for their little bodies. Like, even a micro amount is a lot for them. And it's good stuff. It's what they need. So
Yep.
I just wanted to throw that other little tidbit
Yeah.
in there that sometimes we can underestimate the value of what something small, micro, nutrient dense can actually do for their bodies and their nervous systems and their developing brains. It is actually a lot for them. So, and
Every
I'm
bite
not
counts,
saying
for sure.
it
Every
does, yeah.
does.
And I'm not saying it's a lot as in it's too much. I'm saying it's a lot as in it's exactly what they need because it does so much for them to have those nutrient building blocks in place. So
For
I'm
sure.
so glad that I found you and your company. And I know that my listeners will be so excited to have something easy, accessible for them to grab. Just for those days where it's like, maybe they're in the terrible twos and they're throwing fits about having apples all of a sudden. You want to have something easy and doable to take the stress off of your plate. So
Exactly.
thank
And
you
that's
so much
really,
for
yeah, I was gonna say
keep
that's
going.
that stress moment is really like what we wanted. We wanted, like, yes, ideally a kid sits down and they have a whole plate of fresh whole foods and they eat that at every meal, but that's not reality. And so
Right.
we wanted to meet parents where they're at, and we wanted to get rid of that like daily parent food guilt, like that stress that you're talking
Yes.
about that every parent feels alone oftentimes, like in your head. I feel
Absolutely.
like moms have this stress calculator of
Yeah.
like, you lay your head on the pillow at night and you're like, okay, did they get this? Did they get this? And you're like, oh, probably not because, and so we just wanted to get rid of that. So whether it's
I
half
love
a
it.
bag or a whole bag, um, it is giving them fresh, raw plants. And that
I love it.
is whether it's however much you can fit in a day is always the crowd out effect. As much good stuff as possible will crowd out the other things they could have been eating. And
Yeah.
so that's why we're like, how much nutrient density can we fit per bite to get rid of that stress? And so,
I love
yeah,
it.
I really like, I want parents to know that we designed it this nutrient dense because we wanted every bite to count, because every bite does
Hmm.
count, especially
Hmm.
as you know, some days they love apples, they love bananas, they love spinach, and the next day they're like, I don't want to touch it,
Get it
or
out of my face. Yeah.
they're teething, and like
Yeah.
the only one. So it really is, the answer is never perfection with
Yeah.
parenting. It's not, we know that, but it's just doing our best and then surrounding ourselves with tools that we feel actually work and
Yeah.
give us a breath and an ability to feel like we can release that stress. So
I love it. I love it. You've thought of it all, and I'm so
I,
excited for it. Like I said, I'm on the website and I'm like, yes, I am definitely ordering this. My kids are older, but we still have nutrient gaps sometimes, and I want them, for those of you that are listening, if you're thinking this is just for younger kids, I personally would be thinking about it as just an alternative option for any kid any day. Especially I was even thinking because a lot of my listeners are here for like special needs parenting stuff and kids with, really sensitive palates that maybe don't like the texture of fruit or a vegetable. This could potentially be a really, really good option to try for them. So I'm just excited to get this info out there. Thank you so much for being with us today, Sharon. And I'm just excited to support your company.
thank you. Well, that means so much to me, and thank you for all that you do to help families just find more health and feel more confident in their ability to take care of their families. So thank you for what you do.
Thank
And
you.
if anybody has any questions, we are at foodnerdinc.com, or you can message us on our socials at Food Nerd Inc. But we're here to help, and we're just excited, and it is an honor to get to feed families. We do not take it lightly, and it's the best purpose in the world that we could be on right now. So thank you for
I
telling our
love
story.
that. I love it. And for those of you listening, I will also put the links to how to find Food Nerd Inc. in the show notes. So you'll have many opportunities to get a hold of Sharon in her DMs or just look at their website. Amazing stuff. So thank you so much again, Sharon.
Awesome. Thank you. Bye bye.